Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me. Well, I hope you're all safe and well and managing to get a bit of photography in at the moment. Well, I've really been looking forward to releasing this video. I've got together with Rob Sambles, a fellow sports photographer based just over in Surrey. Now, I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of Rob Sambles and probably already subscribed to his channel. But if you haven't, link to his channel's in the description below and just there, Rob's channel. Yeah, Rob's based over in Surrey, like I say, and he mainly covers football and basketball. Now, he's the team official photographer for the Surrey Scorchers, and he's got some really interesting videos on basketball on his channel. And I mean, basketball's something that I've not done a lot of, so you know, I've been watching his videos. It's really interesting. Obviously, different methods that he uses, the different sorts of kit, different wide-angled lenses and bits and bobs. So yeah, head over to Rob's channel and check out his basketball. But he also does quite a lot of photography at Fulham Football Club with the academy, as well as the first team. And I know last year, obviously, Fulham were in the Premier League, so Rob was doing a lot of Premier League games, following Fulham. Obviously, they're in the Championship now, but I know he's still been getting out a lot until we obviously got stopped. So yeah, head over to Rob's channel, give him a like and a subscribe if you haven't, and I know you'll enjoy lots of videos on there, so he's got a great channel. Anyway, reason for this video, me and Rob got together, obviously only online. I've not even met Rob yet, but the wonders of YouTube and that, so can't wait to meet him eventually. But we thought we'd ask each other a few questions. So my first question to you, Rob, who is the best sporting personality you have photographed and why? Now, it could be, you know, you've had a goal celebration come right on top of you and you've got, you know, a cracking frame of one of the players, or again in your basketball, you've got some good players' portfolios or something, or you've spent some time with a particular player, or managers, you know. So yeah, who is your favourite sports personality that you have photographed and why?
Cool, that's a good question, and that's a real good question. So I think it would be very easy for me to say some of the Surrey Scorchers players, because I've worked with them for quite a long time, especially Teo, who's their captain, Teo Ogundembe, who I've photographed for, I think, sort of 5 years now since the franchise was founded. He was one of the first players there. I've photographed him and his family and like with his kids after the game, and you know, that's been real cool, because I saw like his eldest son, I saw when he was like a baby just born, and now he's at least 5 years old. So you know, that's been real cool, and lots of good photos of him along the way. So that would be very easy for me to just pick him, I suppose. But when I'm looking a bit more at the actual like personality of the players, not somebody who I know or have any kind of personal relationship with, player who I love to photograph is Alexander Mitrovic at Fulham, and that's just because he has so much passion. When he scores a goal, there are very few players who run towards the corner with that level of expression and passion in their face. And luckily, sometimes he'll run my way to the corner where I'm sat. Sometimes he'll go the other way, and when he goes to the other corner, I'm a little bit less of a fan. But when he comes towards me, it's awesome. And that passion he has, he's screaming, he's getting his teammates involved. Whether it's him that scored or one of his teammates, it doesn't seem to matter to him, which is great to see. And even after the celebration is done and dusted and the players are all heading back to the centre, he's the one who's still turning around, and he's like, you know, screaming at the fans and grabbing his chest and his heart and the badge, and that's really good to see. That level of passion and that level of personality you don't always see from footballers, and especially, you know, it sometimes it gets him in a little bit of trouble, sometimes, you know, he gets a little bit agitated about stuff, but that's all part of it, right? And when you get those photos of those kinds of celebrations, those tend to be the best sports photos, and so it's awesome that he has provided quite a few of those for me along the way. And that passion and that personality that he has, he would have to be the player that I would pick. That's a good question, man. I like that. Nice. So Mark, first question coming your way, a question which I get asked all the time, so I thought it'd be interesting to hear what your answer is to the same question, and that's, how did you get started in sports photography? How did you first get into it? What were you shooting first?
Great question that, Rob. Well, as you know, it's an absolute dream to be photographing Premier League week in, week out, all through the season, and Championship and all levels of football, really. So yeah, I feel so privileged to be photographing top flight football. But yeah, where it all started, well, a lot of hours, blood, sweat and tears, really. And obviously I've always had a camera. Used to go to air shows with my granddad as a young lad, and then it developed into a hobby. You know, I used to use granddad's instant camera at the air shows and that, and then I think I borrowed my dad's Zenith back in the day. But anyway, leapfrogging forward a bit, I suppose really on an amateur level, I got involved with horse racing, and on an amateur level, I used to sell my pictures to the race goers and the owners and jockeys and trainers, and that went on for a season, and then I got asked back to the race meetings, and so I upped my game a bit, bought a marquee, and had a couple of guys helping me. So I would be out photographing the racing. I'd whip back to the on my bike. I'd whip back to the marquee with my memory card. One of the lads would download the memory card, print all the pictures off just on standard A4 sheets of paper, and put them on the boards. And then the other guy would be, we had a die-sub printer, so he would be printing off the 8x6s and selling them to the owners and trainers and jockeys, which went on for a few seasons. That was good. So that's probably the start of the sport, if you like. And then I progressed a bit and got a full-time job in the photography section at RAF Cranwell, as you know, and not in the RAF, just working for civilian contractor Serco. And then the sport sort of took a back seat a bit because it was full-time at RAF Cranwell. So, you know, I used to be on call at weekends and bits and bobs, so I couldn't really plan my sports as such. So it went by the wayside a bit. And then things change as you do in life, and I moved down to Hampshire and sort of back as just a hobbyist then, photography-wise, just keeping my eye in. And then I went to, obviously I'm a football fan, always been a football fan. Dad got me into football when he used to take me to West Ham, and still a West Ham fan to this day for my sins. But Lincoln City came down to my local club, Eastleigh Football Club, I think in non-league obviously. And I went along just as a Lincoln fan, and I spotted the photographers, some of the guys sat pitch side, and I thought, do you know what, I'd love to have a go at that. And so on the Monday, I approached Eastleigh, sent them an email and said, look, I'm a hobbyist photographer. I'm looking at getting into sport more seriously. Is there any chance I could come along to the next home game? And they emailed back and said, yeah, come along. Obviously mention us in the press room. You'll probably have to buy a ticket. So obviously I went to the turnstiles with all my kit, said I'd been sent there, you know, and bought a ticket. I think it was £14, something like that. Before I knew it, I was sat pitch side at Eastleigh, which was fantastic. Obviously, I didn't have much kit then. I had a 600D and a 100-400. So all games, zooming in and out, you know, and it just wasn't working. So I had another few games with that, and then quickly ended up upgrading and bought my first 1DX and 70-200. So I had the 600D and the 100-400 as one setup, and then I had my 1DX and the 70-200 as my second body, which was working well. But obviously for the longer stuff, you know, the 600Ds just was poor quality. So sort of halfway through the season, I got my second 1DX body, and I bought a second-hand 400-2.8. So, you know, properly kitted out now, sort of halfway through the season. I got my eye in, I got some decent kit. And then still paying to get in, still paying the £14 ticket to get in, which was great. And they approached me the press lad came outside one day and said, how are you getting on? We'd like to use some of your pictures if that's all right. And I said, yeah, of course you can, fine. Now, obviously, that's a bit frowned upon, really, you know, in our industry today. But at the time, it was the right thing for me to do. And I felt like it was getting my foot on the next step of the ladder. So they stopped charging me. They let me come in for free then, in return for their images for the programme which they started using, which was great. I was chuffed to bits with that. So it was a case of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, really. I was getting in for free. I was getting good experience at you know, quite a good class of football. And so I was getting my eye and getting the experience, and they were getting the images. And that was back in 2014. So that's where it all started, really. And then at the end of that season, I bought a third body. I bought my 7D Mark II, and I got a wide-angle 17-40 f4. And you know, I had a decent set of kit then. And obviously the season finished, and it came to the summer, and I thought, right, I've got to carry on this momentum. So joined Action Plus. I sent an email to quite a few different agencies, managed to get in with Action Plus on commission, obviously, so which was great. They let me pick and choose my games, And the first game I went to was Portsmouth, and this image here of my kit pitch side at Portsmouth, really proud of that day and still remember it like, you know, great to be at Portsmouth. And then it quickly progressed. They let me go into London and, you know, Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea. I could pick and choose where I wanted to go because I was on commission. So I travelled into London quite a lot. Got a lot of other sports in as well, you know, cricket, snooker, tennis, rugby. I covered all sorts. So I ended up being at Action Plus for 3 years and really built a really strong portfolio, and which was fantastic. You know, can't thank him enough really. All on commission, obviously, but building that portfolio as I went along. And then back in 2017, I approached PA to see if they wanted anyone down on the South Coast area, and as luck would have it, they took me on. So that's where I am today. And you know, like I said at the start, I feel so fortunate and so privileged to be doing Premier League. It really is a dream job, so a dream come true really. And yeah, so that's how it all started. So initially amateur horse racing back in sort of mid 2000s, and then later on obviously going to Eastleigh, and that's where it all kicked off really. Yeah, so job's a good one. Right, question number 2, Rob. Talking kit. I know a lot of us, well I know I do, study and read a lot on what is the best kit, what kit not to get, etc, etc. If you were asked to travel light, or you were forced to travel light and you're looking in your kit bag, what would be your lens of choice? If you could only take one lens out, which lens would you pick and why?
Cool, that's another good question. And I think, now it's funny, right? Those of us who photograph, anything, not just sports, anything, you know, at a fairly frequent level or a fairly high level or quite often, would probably argue that every bit of kit we have got in our bags is absolutely essential. I know I certainly say that to Mrs. Sambles when I'm explaining why we need to get something extra or I need to buy something new. I don't think she believes me any more than I believe myself, but you can argue that so much of what's in your bag is the one most important thing, right? Of course, I'd always say it's essential to have more than one camera, so you've got some kind of backup, and that's true. You know, you could certainly say that it's essential to get your 300 lens or your 400 lens, or maybe even something longer like a 500 lens for a lot of sports, because you need that distance to be able to get out there and shoot the action on the pitch. But if I was just picking one, and now I've actually done a video before now to say like what is the one lens you should buy for shooting sports, and it would be wrong of me to go against what I said in that video, and actually I wouldn't go against what I said in that video. I think that's absolutely the right answer, and that is the 70-200 lens. Ideally an f2.8, but you know, look, if your budget doesn't stretch to that, the 70-200 f4 of course is still a good way to go. But for me, my 70-200 f2.8 absolutely would be the one lens. Now I think with that, yeah, fine, it's not the best for shooting, you know, right down pitch in a football game, for example, but so many of the great football photos are the celebrations running towards you, the goal going in, and quite often those are a lot closer to you. They're at your end of the pitch, and that's when you are generally using your 70-200 lens. And I think that lens paired with a DSLR, yeah, great, ideally a 1DX or something like that, but in reality any DSLR, you could go and get some decent sports photos. It would be fine for indoors. You could shoot loads of basketball, volleyball, all kinds of indoor sports on a 70-200. I've used that 70-200 to shoot, got loads of indoor sports, netball I've shot with that lens, and certainly some of my best football photos have come from that lens as well. So I would say if I were just picking one, it would have to be the 70-200 lens, because that probably is the lens that I use the most. I would say I take more photos with that lens, even more so than I do with my longer telephoto lens at a typical sports event. Maybe at football it might be a bit more evenly spread, but certainly at a lot of the other events I do, especially the basketball, I hardly ever use my 300 for that. That would be like 80% on my 70-200, and then the rest of it would be on something wider than that. That's a good question. That's certainly got me thinking, but I'm pretty confident with the answer. I think that is definitely the way that I would go. So Mark, second question coming your way, and that is, what is the favourite event of yours that you have ever photographed? What's the best thing you've done? Which did you enjoy the most? What is the best event that you have ever photographed?
Great question that, Rob. So as you know, feel so privileged to do, to work at Premier League Championship games most weekends, which is absolutely, I feel so lucky, so fantastic to be able to have the chance to work, in the top flight football. Also, I've done, World Snooker, World Athletics, England Rugby, you know, Queen's Tennis, all them sort of things. So feel really privileged. But one trip that really sticks out in my memory for both great memories and a lot of luck was a trip I made along with Steve Paston and James Marsh just over a year ago now, last March, to Juventus versus Ajax in the Champions League. So we travelled across on the Tuesday morning. It was by the way, it was a 4-day trip, because after the Juve versus Ajax game, we took a 6-hour train journey down to Naples to do Napoli versus Arsenal. So a great trip overall, but I just want to talk about the Juve game. So obviously, really excited, because what comes with Juventus, Ronaldo. And having not been in sports photography seriously back when Ronaldo was at Manchester United, never photographed him, never seen him. So I approached the game with a bit of a one-track mind really, which was a bit unprofessional, but Ronaldo, get loads of stuff of Ronaldo. But anyway, so as you can see from this video here, we were about 25th, probably 30th in the queue. Got to the ground, I think we got to the ground 4 hours early, and to be told we weren't going to be let in the ground until 2 hours to go till kick-off, which was a bit of a pain, but never mind, we were there, so that was the main thing. So yeah, we were about 25th, 30th in the queue. Really excited, just looking at the ground, you know, having never been there before, having never experienced European football. I was buzzing, you know, really was buzzing. And there's a bit of video here of us walking into the ground, just only on the phone, just having a quick look round, you know, really excited for the game to get kicked off. So obviously the ground was filling up just there with the fans. So the ironic thing was, and when I said I was lucky, because we were sort of 25th, 30th in the queue, by the time we'd got our passes, obviously we were 30th odd photographer to make it onto pitch side. So there was only a couple of tight spots left for James and for Steve for the Juventus attack first half. So I made my way, I said, okay lads, I'll go the other end, doesn't matter, you know, we don't have to sit together. I'll go the other end and do Ajax attack first half, see how we get on. And as it happened, it was the away end as well, so I had the Ajax fans behind me, which was another bit of luck. And then, lo and behold, Ajax won the toss and swapped ends. So I ended up having Juventus attack first half. So all of a sudden it was like, oh yes, I'm going to get loads of Ronaldo in the first half now, so definitely going to be able to photograph him. You know, he could have got injured or something halfway through the first half and I wouldn't have had him attacking me at all. So that was the first bit of luck. I've got some images lined up here, so we'll just go through these. So obviously all the fans love Ronaldo. Wherever he goes, he's a number one, isn't he? So, and this was the image, the first image I shot of Ronaldo through the lens. I'm thinking, come on, yes, just coming out to warm up, you know, so fantastic. And proper buzzing now. And obviously, nice close up one just after they'd been singing the national anthem in their rows. And then this image here, the atmosphere was absolutely phenomenal. And it just brings me on to another bit of video. Now, obviously, I've walked around from where I'm sitting for the first half and getting ready for manager's handshake and whatever usually goes on at the dugout. And as the team sheet was being read out for the Juventus, the one cheer in unison after every player's name was absolutely fantastic. Don't look at the footage so much, just listen to the sound. I quickly pressed record on my phone late on through the team sheet, and so this bit of video is more for the sound than anything, but I'll just play it now and you'll get what I mean. Everyone cheering at one go. It's something I've not heard before. We all see it on telly, all the European games and how the fans react, but yeah, so I'll just play this now.
Numero 24, Numero 33, Federico. Forza! Forza!
Unbelievable. I mean, we just don't get that over here for some reason. Our fans do cheer, but they don't seem to cheer at exactly the same time for some reason. The European fans have got it nailed, just got it down to a T. So great atmosphere, as you saw there. But anyway, so that's that out of the way, and then we've got the teams. Obviously, I didn't get quite in front of the teams, but still a nice team shot. And then we've got the fans holding their scarves up. Lovely, colourful image that. Now, obviously, with it being Ronaldo, I had several composed images in my mind of what I wanted to get, what I wanted to come away with Ronaldo-wise. It just never happened. You know, some of them games where you make plans to get images and it just doesn't come to you. So I never really got a cracking image of Ronaldo during play, unfortunately. But again, this one here, making a nice tackle, but you know, blocked, so nothing special really. But anyway, so the first bit of luck, as I mentioned earlier, was that I got Juventus first half. Second bit of luck was that Ronaldo scored right in front of me, as you can see here. It's not a great frame. It was a real, you know how he really heads the ball really strongly. He headed it through the players, 1-0 Juventus. Now, because we were travelling light, I never took a third body, so I didn't have a wide angle down by my feet like I would for the Premier League. I always have a wide angle so that if the players come in celebrating, you know, you can drop the 70 to 200 and get on the widey. Never had that there. Just didn't have enough room in my bag, unfortunately. So as he's running past me, as you can see here, I'm trying to make it less than 70mm on the 70 to 200. Does his celebration right in front of me. But as you can see, I'm full frame. 2 or 3 frames before this, I've chopped his finger off and chopped his foot off. Oh, nightmare. And of course, look at the digital board. Priceless. But anyway, I got the best of what I got at the end of the day. His teammates there as well, which sort of messes the frame up a bit. But and of course, the worst thing about this that frustrates me still to this day is the horizons all wonky. But there's nothing I can do. I just chop his hand or his foot off. So, but I got a Ronaldo goal in front of me. I got the goal and I got his celly to a certain bit. But yeah, so still chuffed. I mean, lads have been going for years to Europe and not had a Ronaldo goal in front of him. So for me to get that on my very first game was fantastic, and luck was definitely on my side that night. And then just before half time, Ajax equalised. This is Van der Beek equalising. Obviously shot this on the 400. So they went in half time 1-1, and so game was on. Oh, this is just before half time. Obviously a Ronaldo going for a free kick, thinking, is he going to make it 2-1? Is he going to make it 2-1? But he hit the wall, and that was it. Half time. So second half, I had Ajax, who went in at half time, all fired up. So I had the Ajax attack second half, and lo and behold, late into the second half, De Ligt here made it 2-1 Ajax. So the underdogs are leading, and it's like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. Not only have I got a Ronaldo goal, but I've also now got the underdogs goal and a Selly my end, which is fantastic. And then obviously Ajax went on to win 2-1, underdogs won. And this is not a great frame, but this is Ronaldo looking a bit dejected. Of course, as soon as full time hit, I went on the 400 looking for Ronaldo to get some dejection, as you do. And unfortunately, Juve's player, number 19 here on the right, he got in the way of... is it Daley Blind there? He used to play for Man U, now gone to Ajax. So he's celebrating, and you got Ronaldo looking a bit dejected, but it's a nothing frame really, unfortunately. Just backdrop's not very nice. And then obviously you've got De Ligt here celebrating with his teammates at full time. And then of course I was Ajax end. I had all the Ajax fans behind me, so the atmosphere was fantastic. Heck of an atmosphere, as you can imagine. And then all the players came over at full time celebrating. Some cracking frames of the Ajax fans going absolutely mad, all taking their shirts off. Heck of a night, heck of an atmosphere. And yeah, so up till now, that is, I don't know the next game I'll photograph to beat that. You know, going to Europe, Italy, heck of an experience. And I say, then we went on to Naples to do Napoli versus Arsenal, another great game. But yeah, so in answer to your question, a bit of a long-winded one with all these images going through them. But yeah, best event so far, best game, Ajax away to Juventus, and a Ronaldo goal, a Ronaldo celly, and then the underdogs winning, and I got it all really that night, so really lucky, and a memory that'll stay with me forever. Right, question number 3, Rob. What is your favourite venue that you have ever worked at? You know, what gives you, when you think back, what always pops into your head first? What event was it? What venue was it? What's given you some really great memories? So yeah, what's the best sport venue you've worked at and why?
Cool, that's a really good question, Mark. I like that one. I feel like I'm answering most of these questions with like multiple choice answers, but you know what, there's a few things I could say for that. I mean, I remember the first time that I shot at Craven Cottage was pretty cool. That was the first time that I shot the Fulham first team at Craven Cottage, and that was certainly a cool experience. But the first time I did Wembley at England was amazing. I was actually my first time at Wembley. Now, Spurs were playing at Wembley at the time, and I shot a few Spurs games that season. But actually, the first time that I shot at Wembley was actually for an England game. It was England against Brazil. That would have been back in 2017, and that was the first time I shot at Wembley. So for the first time you're photographing at Wembley, to be an England game was cool. It was a night match. I remember walking up to the stadium and seeing that archway and everything, and to be able to go through, kind of obviously go in the media entrance and through kind of all the under the stands and through the media areas there, and that was really interesting. In just the same way, like people who go and do tours and stuff at these kind of stadiums, it was kind of like that, because I was seeing areas of the stadium I'd never seen before. And I've been to Wembley before to watch games as a fan, and that was really good to then see all that like behind the scenes stuff. That was also the first kind of run of games that I'd done where it was real, like, really busy in terms of photographers. I mean, I'd been used to doing Fulham where there were, maybe on busy times there were 10 or 12 of you, but not to the scale of that. There must have been 70 of us there for that game, and that was crazy. And to learn how to work effectively in such a short space, I'd got there really early, so I got a half decent position actually, probably to the annoyance of some of the other bigger agency guys who were around me, but I'd managed to get a half decent spot. And so, I was there on the end line, not too far from the corner flag. When you get to those high level games, as you all know, Mark, a lot of the corner spots are reserved for like the real high end agencies or like the team photographers and stuff like that. So I couldn't get right into the corner, but I got a pretty decent position. So that was really good. And that generally that day out at Wembley was great. But that isn't the one that I would pick. The one that I would pick would be the O2 Arena in London. Now, it's a venue I'd photographed before, and I'd photographed basketball there. I did a BBL playoff final. I think 2016 maybe was my first BBL playoff final, and I've done that pretty much every year since then. But the time I'm talking about was the first time that I photographed an NBA game. Now, I started in sports primarily as a basketball photographer, and so to be there photographing the NBA, I kind of felt like I'd made it as a basketball photographer, to be photographing that level of basketball. I remember walking out into the arena and seeing it set up like that. It really felt like an NBA venue, like I was there in an NBA arena, and that was fantastic. I got there really early. I remember I spent time like walking around some of the arena and getting a couple of selfies, and I went and sat in the courtside seats and got a selfie of my feet, silly things like that. But it was really good just to really soak in that atmosphere. You can probably imagine the BBL playoff final a few years before had been fairly busy, but like the media facilities were like a side room with sort of 5-6 photographers in, whereas the NBA, you can imagine the media stuff was extensive. There were just tables of journalists in the back rooms, and the TV stations and the BBC had quite a big presence, and Sky were in there. Loads of photographers. A lot of the agencies had people, and of course a lot of the American press as well. Now, one of the coolest things about it was that there was an NBA photographer called Brian Babineau, who is the club photographer for the Boston Celtics, and I had followed his work on Instagram and stuff like that for a few years, and I actually got to meet him and had a bit of a chat with him, a very brief chat about photographing basketball, but he was a lovely guy. He took the time to chat to me. I told him I'd followed his work for a while on Instagram, which he seemed to really appreciate and thanked me for doing that, and it was really good, so I and it's made me, in terms of the level of photographer I am, I'm small, right? I'm right down there, but those kind of interactions I've had with some of the bigger photographers who I admire like that, it always makes me then think, when people take time to contact me and ask me questions, I always try to really take the time to thank them for doing doing that, because it means a lot, and the way that Brian, for example, treated me and thanked me and talked to me about some of the work he's done was really cool, and I appreciated that. But that entire experience of photographing the NBA, and to be there courtside, it was one of those occasions where I had to sort of check myself. I was there to do a job, a professional job. I had to make sure I did it well, and it would have been easy for me to get caught up in the atmosphere of doing the NBA. But I cracked on. I did it. I'd like to think I did it all right. Got some good shots from it. Got some stuff that was used in the papers and things, which is good. It's always nice to have, of course. So yeah, for me, my first time shooting an NBA regular season game, which was over here at the O2 in London, definitely for me, that would be the number one. Okay, Mark, third question for you. Something which I think will be interesting for both our viewers. A lot of viewers of my channel, and the same for your channel as well, would aspire to photograph some of the bigger events that we've both been blessed to do, like Premier League football games and stuff like that. But what do you think is the one thing that people probably wouldn't expect that we both know now from shooting Premier League games? What do you think is the one thing that people don't expect, or the thing that might be different from what people anticipate when they're thinking, I would love to go and photograph a Premier League football game?
That's a great question, Rob, and one that I don't really get asked much about what to expect. The one thing personally that I think's really important is research and planning. Now obviously most Premier League games, 3 o'clock kick-off, 90 minutes, done. But for me, I usually get told where I'm going to be photographing the following week every Sunday. So as soon as I get my shifts in, straight away I'll nip online and see what's occurring. And we're talking, Monday. So Monday through Friday night, I'll be keeping an eye online. Say I've got Bournemouth. I usually do Bournemouth or Southampton, occasionally Brighton, which works great for me on the south coast. So, it'll alternate. So I've got Bournemouth Wolves comes through on the email. All through the following week, leading up to the game, I'll be keeping an ear out on TalkSport. I'll be keeping a lookout online, all the various outlets, to see if there's any injuries. Obviously, if it's that time of season, any new signings. Just looking and planning ahead to get some photographs of a story that might happen. For instance, when Arteta was signed at Arsenal, his first game in charge of Arsenal was away at Bournemouth. So obviously I made sure I got him getting off the coach. I made sure I got him pitch side, looking at the pitch before, when they arrived at the ground. I made sure I needed to get as much imagery of him as I could for the online outlets to report before the game had even started, and then once kickoff came, handshake, I got about 10 frames of him in the dugout, sat down, stood up, and all this had been planned way before the game. I've got to get as much of Arteta as I can, and then when kickoff started, I stayed at the dugout and got 10 minutes of him, stock images of him. And that's what I mean by, obviously during that week he'd signed, and so I'm already thinking, right, my main subject for the first 10 minutes of the game and before the game is Arteta. Then I'll go and do the game, and then there might be injuries where a player still turns up to the ground but isn't playing. Like for instance, I'm just using Harry Kane as an example. He may be injured, but he still goes to watch. So getting an image of Harry right up in the stands watching the game, that can be a story in itself. Not even anything to do with the game. So yeah, it's all about planning and research. So planning what you want to take, because at the end of the day, yes, we're there to cover the game, but we're also there to cover stories that might be going on in the background, So we've got to get as much imagery as we can of as many stories covered as we can, So yeah, I would say primarily it's not just a 90-minute game on a Saturday afternoon or whenever you're taking the pictures. It can be the whole week leading up to that game. You're planning in your head what images you want, how you're going to compose them, So yeah, so that's the main thing I would say with people that perhaps don't think about it that way. And second most important thing really is the time. I mean, most games on a Saturday, you're looking at between 8 and 10 hours. So it takes up the whole of your Saturday or your Sunday or your evening match, whatever it is. obviously you're travelling to the ground, you get into the ground 3.5 hours earlier and queuing outside until you're let in. So, you know, I mean, I'm lucky that I only really do Bournemouth and Southampton, so they're both about an hour away. So I'll set off home about 8:30, 9 o'clock, get to the ground for 10, 11 o'clock, say, depending on traffic. And then you're let into the ground at 11:30, 12 o'clock, 3 hours early, to then prepare for the game. You know, go and find out where you're going to sit. Again, you're still doing research even leading up to 3 o'clock. You know, you're getting the fans arriving, so you're outside the ground hour and a half before. Obviously the coach, the away team, the away coach arrives an hour and a half before kick-off, so you've got to be outside the ground to get them coming off the coach. Then you're dashing inside the ground, pitch side, to get the away team having, you know, checking out the pitch. So you've got all that to think about as well. And then I might go outside again and get a few more fans arriving, just to try and capture the atmosphere of all the fans, the away fans and the home fans arriving and chatting and bits and bobs. And then obviously lead up to the game. Then you're in the game, you've got the 90 minutes then, all the time through the game as well. Check in online to see if there's anything that you've missed that you might have an image for. You know, it's always, there's constant things going through your mind. It's not just about photographing the game, always keeping an eye on, you know, even keeping an eye on other games and other scores that's going on, because it's not long, but if it, at the end of the season, when each score is really important to where they end up in the league table, the fans' reactions, say like, you know, say Saints needed a win, and the team below Saints are winning and Saints aren't winning, the Saints fans will cheer on their players, you know. So it's you've got to keep an eye on everything online, other scores, anything that's gone on. It's just, there's so much to think about, and it's all in 90 minutes really. And then afterwards, once full-time whistle, it's by no means the end for us. Obviously, we'll photograph the players shaking hands, looking for any reactions, any dejection, and then again going online to read the report from the game, going through that report, going through our set, seeing if there's anything extra we can grab out of our set to go with the report, you know. Also checking our full set on the laptop, back in the press room afterwards. I mean, we're talking sometimes 6:30 before I'm even leaving the ground. And then once I'm in my car, I'll put TalkSport on, I'll listen to the report again from TalkSport, just thinking, you know, there might have been a brawl or something, or a coming together on the pitch and then something's happened in the dugout or something, or in the tunnel afterwards. You might have a picture of those two players stood together during play. So, you know, you never know it might be a manager's reaction. A manager might resign and you've got a great dejection image of a manager from throughout the game. You can send that off. So, and then obviously I'll get home and I'll do a second edit. So I'll go through the set again. I mean, it's sometimes match of the day starting at, when does that start? 10:30. And I'm still looking through the game's, you know, set of images that finished at 5 o'clock. So it's a long old day, the day itself. So yeah, I would say at least 12, 14 hours spent on a game on a weekend, you know. So yeah, so that's the two main things anyway. Long old answer again, sorry Rob, but so planning and research all through the week for the game that you're leading up to. And obviously if you've got 2 or 3 games that week, you're really busy online and watching Sky Sports News and whatever to try and pick out any stories that you might be able to put a photograph with. So yeah, planning and research, and then the number of hours on the day that it consumes. So yeah, sometimes 10, 12 hours on a normal day. So yeah, long-winded answer, but yeah, planning and research and the hours it takes. Crikey, don't I harp on with my answers? Flipping out. I suppose it's the passion coming out in me though, but I got my answer there in the end. A few long-winded ones, but hopefully you enjoyed that, guys, anyway. And thanks ever so much, Rob, for taking the time out to answer my questions and listen to my answers. But I really enjoyed that, and I'm sure you guys enjoyed it as well. It's great to it was great to get to know Rob over the internet a bit. Obviously not met him yet, and look forward to meeting him sometime soon. Hopefully once we get going again, that is. But yeah, it was great to get to know Rob and find out a bit about his past and bits and bobs. So, and I'm sure you enjoyed it too. So, and Mitrovic, the amount of times that I've followed Mitrovic hoping that he's going to score because you know he's going to give you such a passionate celebration. I mean, you've got some great images there, so I know what you mean about Mitrovic. 70 to 200. I was sort of convinced you might go with that answer, but I wasn't sure if you were going to go with the 2470, you know, with your basketball and that, and the court's a bit smaller. But yeah, so good answer that. And of course, what a great opportunity meeting Brian Babineau. I mean, brilliant, dream come true really, following him on Instagram and that, and then not only meeting him, but chatting to him at an NBA event. Can't get much better than that really, so some great memories for you there. So yeah, job's a good one, really enjoyed that. It's great to get to know Rob over the internet a bit and find out a bit about him and that, and see some of his work as well, so that was great. So thanks for taking part, Rob. Don't forget guys, link to Rob's channel is in the description below and just here. And yeah, go and give him a like and a subscribe, and I'm sure you'll enjoy his channel. There is hours of videos to watch on there, so yeah, go and visit Rob's channel as soon as you can when you've got 5 minutes, and you'll enjoy it. But yeah, job's good one. Thanks for watching guys, bit of a longer video than normal, but I'm sure you enjoyed it as much as I did. That was great, really enjoyed it, great fun. Thanks guys, take care, catch up soon.